Everyone. Today we are going to start with a new chapter, that is neural control and coordination. So in this chapter we'll be discussing four important topics, that is neural system, human neural system, neuron as structural and functional unit of neural system, and the central neural system. The functions of the organs or the organ systems in our body must be coordinated to maintain the homeostasis. So, to maintain the homeostasis, it is very much necessary for the organs or the organ systems in our body must be coordinated. So, this coordination is a process through which two or more organs interact and complement the functions of one another. Suppose if we take an example that when we do a physical exercises, the energy demand is increased for maintaining an increased muscular activity. The supply of the oxygen is also increased, and the increased supply of oxygen necessitates an increase in the rate of respiration, heartbeat, and increased blood flow via blood vessel. When physical exercise is stopped, the activities of nerves, lungs, heart, and kidney gradually return to the normal conditions. Thus, the functions of the muscle, lungs, heart, blood vessels, kidney, and other organs are coordinated while performing the physical exercises. So, in our body, the neural system and the endocrine system jointly coordinate and integrate all the activities of the organs so that they function in a synchronized fashion. So, the organs to work in a synchronized function, so it is very much necessary of the neural system as well as the endocrine system, which are jointly coordinate. So the neural system provides an organized network of point-to-point connections for a quick coordination, whereas the endocrine system provides the chemical integration through the hormones. So we all know that the organs and the organ system in our body must be coordinated, so then only we can maintain the homeostasis. So this coordination is done by the neural system and the endocrine system jointly. The neural system provides an organized network of point-to-point connections for a quick coordination, whereas the endocrine system provides the chemical integration through hormones. So now coming to the neural system. The neural system of all animals is composed of highly specialized cells called the neurons, which can detect, receive, and transmit different kinds of stimuli. So the neural system is present in all the animals, and it is composed of highly specialized cells which are called as neurons. So these neurons are having the ability to detect, receive, and transmit different kinds of stimuli. So how is the organization of this neural system in the different organisms? So the neural organization is very simple in lower invertebrates. For example, if you take a hydra, it is composed of a network of neurons. The neural system is better organized in insects, where a brain is present along with a number of ganglia and the neural tissues, whereas the vertebrates have a more developed neural system, right? So in case of the lower invertebrates, insects, as well as the vertebrates, so there are different types of neural system based upon their complexity of the organization. So now coming to the human neural system. Our human neural system or the nervous system is divided mainly into two parts, that is the central neural system and the peripheral neural system. The central neural system includes the brain and the spinal cord, and it is the site of information processing and control. The peripheral neural system, it is comprising of all the nerves of the body associated with the central nervous system, that is brain as well as the spinal cord. The nerve fibers of the peripheral neural system are of two types, that is afferent fibers and the afferent fibers. The afferent fibers transmit impulses from tissues or organs to the central nervous system, and the afferent fibers transmit regulatory impulses from the central nervous system to the concerned peripheral tissues or the organs. The peripheral nervous system is again divided into two divisions called as a somatic neural system and the autonomic neural system. The somatic neural system relays impulses from the central nervous system to the skeletal muscle, while the autonomic neural system transmits impulses from the central nervous systems to the involuntary organs and the smooth muscles of the body. The autonomic neural system is further classified into two that is sympathetic neural system and the parasympathetic neural system. So this is how the classification of the neural system goes. That is, mainly the nervous system is divided into two, that is central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system consists of spinal cord and the brain. Peripheral nervous system consists of autonomic nervous system and the somatic nervous system, whereas the autonomic nervous system is further divided into sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So now let us study the structure of a neuron. So here you are going to see the structure of the neuron. So the neuron consists of mainly two things. One is the cyton and one is the axon. Right? So here you can see the different parts of the neuron, that is dendrites, Nissls granules, cell body, nucleus, Schwann cell, axon, myelin sheath, node of Ranvier, axon terminal and the synaptic node. So now let us study what are these various parts and what are the functions which are present in the neuron. A neuron is a microscopic structure composed of three major parts, namely cell body, dendrites and the axon. The cell body contains cytoplasm with typical cell organelles and a certain granular body is called Nissls granules. So the mainly a neuron is divided into three major parts. One is cell body, dendrites as well as the axon. The cell body contains the cytoplasm with a typical cell organelles and certain granular bodies. So the granular bodies which are present in the cell body are called as the Nissls granules. The short fiber which branch repeatedly and project out of the cell also contain Nissls granules and are called as the dendrites. So along with the Nissls granules, it also consists of the dendrites. So now the axon is a long fiber, the distal end of which is branched. Each branch terminates as a bulb-like structure called as a synaptic knob. So this synaptic knob possesses a synaptic vesicles containing the chemicals which are called as a neurotransmitters. So based on the number of axon and dendrites, the neurons are mainly divided into three types. One is multipolar, bipolar and unipolar. So this is based upon the number of axon and the dendrites. So again, based upon the types of axons, means there are two types of axons, namely a myelinated and the non-myelinated. The myelinated nerve fibers are enveloped with the Schwann cells. The gaps between two adjacent myelin sheaths are called as the nodes of Ranvier. So this is the structure of a neuron. So neuron consists mainly of a cell body, dendrites and axon. So cell body contains granular bodies which are called as Nissls granules. So again it is branched repeatedly to form a dendrites. So axon is a distal, it's a long fiber and the distal end is having the synaptic knob and the chemicals which are present are called as a neurotransmitters. So based on the number of axon and dendrites, the neurons are divided into three types, that is multipolar, bipolar and unipolar. So again there are two types of axons, namely myelinated and the non-myelinated. So the myelinated nerve fibers are enveloped with the Schwann cells and the gaps between two adjacent myelin sheaths are called as a nodes of Ranvier. So now coming to the next one, that is the generation and conduction of nerve impulse. So the diagram which you are going to see, that is the diagrammatic representation of impulse conduction through an axon. That is from point A and point B, that is at point A and B. So what happens means, neurons are excitable cells because their membrane are in a polarized state. So different type of ion channels are present on the neural membrane. These ion channels are selectively permeable to different ions. So when a neuron is not conducting an impulse, that is resting, the axonal membrane is comparatively more permeable to the potassium ions and nearly impermeable to the sodium ions. So at the rest state, it is permeable to potassium and it is impermeable to sodium ions. So similarly, the membrane is impermeable to negatively charged proteins present in the exoplasm. Consequently, the exoplasm inside the axon contains high concentration of potassium and negatively charged proteins and low concentration of sodium. So in contrast, that is in opposite to that, the fluid outside the axon, so it is going to contain a low concentration of potassium, a high concentration of sodium and thus form a concentration gradient. So these ionic gradients across the resting membrane are maintained by the active transport of ions by the sodium potassium pump, which transport 3 sodium outwards and for 2 potassium into the cell. So as a result, the outer surface of the axonal membrane possesses a positive charge while its inner surface becomes negatively charged and therefore is polarized. So the electrical potential differences across the resting plasma membrane is called as the resting potential. So you might be curious to know about the mechanisms of generation of the nerve impulse and its conduction along a axon. So when a stimulus is applied at a site, suppose if you take in the figure that is point A on the polarized membrane, the membrane at the site A becomes freely permeable to sodium. So this leads to a rapid influx of sodium followed by the reversal of the polarity at the state that is the outer surface of the membrane, which becomes negatively charged and the inner side becomes positively charged. The polarity of the membrane at the site A is thus reversed and hence depolarized. The electrical potential difference across the plasma membrane at the site A is called action potential, so which is in fact termed as a nerve impulse. So the action potential can also be called as a nerve impulse. At the site immediately ahead, the axon, that is site B, the membrane is having a positive charge on the outer surface and a negative charge on its inner surface. As a result, a current flows on the inner surface from the site A to site B. On the outer surface, current flows from site B to site A to complete the circuit of current flow. Hence, the polarity at the site is reversed and an action potential is generated at site B. Thus, the impulse generated at site A arrives at site B. The sequence is repeated along the length of the axon and consequently the impulse is conducted. The rise in the stimulus induced permeability to sodium is extremely short lived. It is quickly followed by a rise in a permeability of the potassium. Within a fraction of a second, potassium diffuses outside the membrane and restores the resting potential of the membrane at the site of excitation, and the fiber becomes once more responsive to further stimulation. Right, so this is how the generation and conduction of nerve impulse takes place. So now coming to the next one, that is transmission of impulses. So here I want to see the diagrammatic representation that is going to show axon terminal and a synapse. So here what are the various parts? Axon, axon terminal, synaptic vesicles, presynaptic membrane, synaptic cleft, postsynaptic membrane. So these three together they are going to form a synapse. And lastly, the receptors as well as the chemicals which are present are called as a neurotransmitters. So what happens in the transmission of impulses? That is, a nerve impulse is transmitted from one neuron to another neuron through the junction called as a synapses. A synapse is formed by the membrane of a presynaptic neuron and a postsynaptic neuron, so which may or may not be separated by a gap called as a synaptic cleft. So there are two types of synapses, namely electrical synapse and the chemical synapse. At the electrical synapses, the membranes of pre and postsynaptic neurons are in a very close proximity and the electrical current can flow directly from one neuron into the other across these synapses. Transmission of an impulse across the electrical synapses is very similar to impulse conduction along a single axon. Impulse transmission across an electrical synapse is always faster than the across a chemical synapse because electrical synapses are rare in our system. At a chemical synapse, the membranes of the pre and postsynaptic neurons are separated by a fluid-filled space called a synaptic cleft. Chemicals called as neurotransmitters are involved in the transmission of impulses at these synapses. So the axon terminals contain vesicles filled with these neurotransmitters. When an impulse arrives at the axon terminal, it stimulates the movement of the synaptic vesicles towards the membrane. So where they fuse with the plasma membrane and release their neurotransmitters in the synaptic cleft. The released neurotransmitters bind to the specific receptors present on the postsynaptic membrane. So this binding opens ion channels, allowing the entry of ions which can generate a new potential in the postsynaptic neuron, and the new potential developed may be either excitatory or the inhibitory. So this is regarding the transmission of impulses, that is from one neuron to the another one. So now let us study the last topic of this chapter, that is central neural system. So the brain is a central information processing organ of our body, and it acts as the command and control system. It controls the voluntary movements, balance of the body, functioning of vital involuntary organs such as the lungs, heart, kidney, etc., and also thermoregulation, hunger and thirst, circadian rhythms of our body, activities of several endocrine glands, and the human behavior. So it is also the site of processing of vision, hearing, speech, memory, intelligence, emotions and thoughts. So here the brain can be considered as a main switch, because as it controls so many functions of our body as well as the organs. The human brain is well protected by the skull. Inside the skull, the brain is covered by a cranial meninges consisting of an outer layer called a dura mater, a very thin middle layer called arachnoid, and an inner layer, so that is which is in contact with the brain tissue, is called pia mater. So the brain can be divided into three major parts, that is the forebrain, midbrain and the hindbrain. So this is a structure which shows a sagittal section of the human brain. So here you can see the various parts, that is the cerebral hemisphere, corpus callosum, cerebral aqueduct, pons, cerebellum, medulla, which together they are going to constitute a hindbrain, a spinal cord, cerebrum and thalamus, which forms the forebrain as well as the midbrain. So here you can in clear you can see the different parts of the brain, that is forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So now let us see which are the various parts present in the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain, and what is the function of this. So the first one is the forebrain. So the forebrain consists of cerebrum, thalamus and the hypothalamus. So cerebrum, thalamus and hypothalamus together they are going to form a forebrain. And this cerebrum consists, or it forms, the major part of the human brain. So among this cerebrum, thalamus and hypothalamus, the major part or the important part is the cerebrum. A deep cleft divides the cerebrum longitudinally into two halves, which are termed as the left and the right cerebral hemispheres. The hemispheres are connected by a tract of nerve fibers which are called as a corpus callosum. The layer of the cells which covers the cerebral hemisphere is called the cerebral cortex and is thrown into the prominent folds. The cerebral cortex is referred to as a grey matter due to its greyish appearance. The neuron cell bodies are concentrated here, giving the color. The cerebral cortex contains motor areas, sensory areas and large regions that are neither clearly sensory nor motor in function. So these regions are called as the association areas, which are responsible for complex functions like intersensory association, memory and communications. So the fibers of the tracts are covered with a myelin sheath which constitute the inner part of the cerebral hemisphere. So they give an opaque with white appearance to the layer, and hence it is called the white matter. So due to the appearance like greyish color, it is called as a grey matter, and due to the appearance of whitish, it is called as a white matter. So the cerebrum wraps around a structure called a thalamus, which is a major coordinating center for sensory and motor signaling. Another very important part of the brain is called as the hypothalamus, so which lies at the base of the thalamus. The hypothalamus contains a number of centers which control body temperature, urge for eating and drinking. So it also contains several groups of neurosecretory cells which secrete hormones called hypothalamic hormones. The inner parts of the cerebral hemisphere and a group of associated deep structures like amygdala, hippocampus, etc. form a complex structure called the limbic lobe or the limbic system. Along with the hypothalamus, it is involved in the regulation of sexual behavior, expression of emotional reaction, that is excitement, pleasure, rage and fear. and also the motivation. So these are the various parts of the brain, forebrain, and the functions which are performed by the forebrain. So now going to the second one, that is the midbrain. So the midbrain is located between the thalamus or the hypothalamus of the forebrain and the pons of the hindbrain. So a canal called cerebral aqueduct passes through the midbrain. The dorsal portion of the midbrain consists mainly of four round swellings called corpora quadrigemina. So the midbrain and hindbrain form the brainstem. So the midbrain and the hindbrain together, they are going to form a brainstem, and it is present between the thalamus or hypothalamus of the forebrain and the pons of the hindbrain. So now the last part of this chapter and the last part of the brain, that is hindbrain. The hindbrain also consists mainly of the pons, cerebellum and medulla. The pons consist of fiber tracts that interconnect different regions of the brain. Cerebellum has a very convoluted surface in order to provide the additional space for many more neurons. So the medulla of the brain is connected to the spinal cord. The medulla contains centers which control respiration, cardiovascular reflexes, and the gastric functions or the gastric secretions. So the hindbrain mainly consists of three parts: pons, cerebellum, and medulla. So again, this pons consist of the fiber that interconnect the different regions of the brain. Cerebellum, it is a convoluted surface, so it is going to provide the additional space for many neurons. And the medulla of the brain is connected to the spinal cord, and it controls the respiration, cardiovascular reflexes, and the gastric secretion. So with this, the chapter, that is neural control and coordination. So here we had discussed regarding the neural system, human neural system, structure of neuron, as well as the central neural system. So that's all for the today's class. Thank you.